Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into three super powerful but also super low-cost habits that science is showing can actually help reverse the clock on biological aging.
So let's just start with a huge question. What if you could literally turn back time on your body's most important organ? I mean, is it even possible to get your 50-year-old heart to work like it did when you were 30?
And look, this isn't science fiction. That's a direct quote from a huge 2-year study. Dr. Ben Levine took a bunch of middle-aged folks who were pretty sedentary, not really working out, and put them on a specific program. The results were just wow, a reversal of 20 years of aging in the heart. It's unbelievable.
Okay, so the big question is, how do we get there? Well, our first tool is something Dr. Rhonda Patrick calls the biggest anti-aging blockbuster out there, and that's vigorous exercise. This was really the secret sauce in that study we just talked about.
Now, let's be really clear about what vigorous actually means. This isn't about going for a light jog where you can still chat with your friend. Nope. We're talking about pushing yourself hard, getting your heart rate up to 80% of its max, or even higher. You know you're there when you're too breathless to hold a conversation. That's the zone where your body is forced to adapt and get stronger.
And the risk of not doing this is just staggering. We hear all the time about the dangers of smoking or diabetes, and rightly so. But a massive study found that just having low cardiorespiratory fitness, basically being out of shape, was a better predictor of dying early than even those things. It's wild. Being sedentary is, in itself, a disease.
So yeah, that's the risk. But what about the reward? Well, this chart says it all. It shows your risk of dying from any cause based on your fitness level. And just look at that gap. If you can get into that elite category, you have an 80% lower risk of dying compared to someone in the low fitness group. 80%! The upside here is just massive.
So, how do you get into that elite zone? Well, one of the most effective ways is something called the Norwegian 4x4 protocol. It's simple, but it's tough. You go all out for 4 minutes, then you take it easy for 3 minutes to recover, and you just repeat that cycle 4 times. It works so well because it really pushes your heart and lungs to their limit and then gives them just enough of a break before you go again.
And what's really cool is that this isn't just about your heart. When you push that hard, your muscles produce something called lactate. Now, people used to think it was just a waste product, but it's actually this powerful signal that travels up to your brain. It helps you grow new brain cells, boosts serotonin, which helps with things like impulse control, and it jacks up your norepinephrine so you can focus like a laser.
Okay, on to our second tool. What if I told you that you could get some of the same benefits as exercise, but without actually exercising? Well, that's where using heat as a form of medicine comes in.
This is just fascinating stuff. There was a study that put a 15-minute sauna session head-to-head with 15 minutes of cycling at a moderate pace. And get this, the changes in heart rate, blood pressure, all the physiological stuff, it was identical. The sauna basically mimics exercise. And this isn't just a short-term trick. It leads to incredible long-term protection. Big studies out of Finland show this really clear pattern. The more you sauna, the better. Hitting the sauna 2 or 3 times a week was linked to a 22% lower risk of sudden cardiac death. But if you ramp that up to 4 to 7 times a week, that risk drops by an incredible 63%.
And that protective shield extends to your brain too. That same research found that people who use the sauna 4 to 7 times a week had a 65% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. I mean, think about that. That's one of the biggest risk reductions for a lifestyle habit that we've ever seen.
But, the details here really matter if you want those results. The protocol from those Finnish studies is pretty specific. You want the temperature to be around 179 degrees Fahrenheit. You need to stay in for at least 20 minutes to really get the benefits, and you've got to be consistent, at least 2 times a week, but ideally 4 or more.
And here's a really important warning. More is not always better. The research showed that while that 179-degree range is the sweet spot, pushing the heat way up, like over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, was actually linked to a doubled risk of Alzheimer's. So the goal is to stress your body in a healthy way, not to damage it. You got to stay in that proven range.
All right, for our third and final tool, we're going to flip the script and use the opposite kind of stress, cold. Let's dive into the powerful effects of deliberate cold exposure. It triggers this totally unique and really potent chain reaction of benefits in your body and your brain.
So the key thing to understand here is the massive chemical shift that happens in your brain when you get cold. Research has shown that spending about an hour in water that's around 57 degrees can cause a 5-fold, we're talking 500%, increase in norepinephrine. And the good news is you don't even need a full hour to get a really big boost.
So what does all that extra norepinephrine do for you? Well, it leads to some pretty incredible benefits. It can have a serious antidepressant effect, it makes you way more focused and alert, and it fires up your metabolism. It actually tells your body to grow new mitochondria, turning you into a much more efficient, energy-burning machine. But, and this is a big but, timing is everything. If your goal is to build muscle and get stronger, jumping into an ice bath right after you lift weights is a really bad idea. The cold shrinks your blood vessels, and that can slow down the signals your body needs to actually build muscle. So you could be blunting your own gains. It's much better to separate your cold therapy from your strength training.
Okay, so let's put it all together. We've gone over 3 incredibly powerful tools, but how do you actually fit them into your life? Let's build a simple, practical weekly plan you can start using right away to build up your resilience and really improve your health span.
Here it is, your weekly toolkit, all laid out. The goal is pretty straightforward. Try to get in 1 or 2 sessions of that tough, vigorous exercise each week. For heat, aim for 4 or more 20-minute sauna sessions. And for cold, just add in 2 or 3 short, 2-minute exposures. This right here is your basic template for turning back the clock.
You know, this isn't about being perfect right out of the gate. It's really just about starting. So think about this. If you only had 15 minutes a week, just 15 minutes, to invest in your long-term health, where would you start? Would you do 1 intense 4x4 session, or maybe 3 quick 5-minute sits in the sauna? It's all about building that habit, building that resilience, one little step at a time. The power to start is right there, in your hand.